Hello, folks. Welcome again to Our City Matters. Today we're going to be talking about poverty in the Manchester area here. We have articles in the Union Leader that, it's just outrageous. I'm going to use that word outrageous, how the poverty rate is so high in Manchester. So I have Bob Tarr with me, and he and I are going to just banter back and forth about a little bit that we know concerning the issue about poverty, about where are the jobs, and about the HiSet, which is the GED high school equivalency test. Those three, I think, Bob, go together. Do you think?
I think so too, Deborah. I think they do go together, especially the poverty. There has been such an uptick in poverty over the last many years. I've lived here in Manchester for 16 years, and it just seems that it's been growing by leaps and bounds, poverty. Even after the Great Recession that we had, it seems that we have not gotten out of that recession. And it just seems more and more people, especially in Manchester, have been in poverty, or what they say is poverty, which is below the federal guidelines as they designate them to be. So
we're looking at these articles here. We have this article from March 27th, 2015. That's one about the poverty rate in Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
And so if anyone wants to Google that, Union Leader, March 27th, 2015, city losing ground to poverty. We have one of the sentences, a statistic here that says that we have as much poverty in Manchester as the population of Coos County, which is the north of New Hampshire.
Right, the northern end of New Hampshire, yeah.
It's just crazy. And we have the children who are designated free and reduced lunch, which is, outrageous numbers.
Oh, you look at, for years I lived in the inner city for 13 years, and Beach Street has always been above 80% on the free and reduced lunch for poverty. And, people say, well, why is that? But you think about it, that the inner city holds the most residential rental units than the rest of the outskirts of the city. So when you look at the inner city, when a lot of refugees come here from other services and stuff that are brought into the city, they are placed into the inner city, which thus then creates a giant pot, if you will, of poverty. These people come here with nothing. They have to go through, different people have to educate them about, state welfare, city welfare, resources that they can get into. A lot of them are not even English speaking, and it's very difficult for them. So yes, this article in March said that currently Beach Street is around 90%, or 600 children that are on the free and reduced lunch, which is 54%. That's a lot of children. That's a lot of children when you think about that. They also mentioned here that living below the poverty threshold, which again is under the federal guidelines, like $11,000 a year. I bring in around $12,000 a year.
Well, that's most people on Social Security.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, you talk about Social Security not doing any COLA increases next year. That doesn't help those who are living in poverty get out of poverty, because there's no increase there to help with things.
Well, we need to do something to help parents.
Yes, we do.
The children, they're the product right now of the parents' situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think parents want to be on welfare.
I don't think so either. I think that a majority, at least 80%, would like to get out of poverty, would like to be under the systematic state welfare, if you will, of food stamps and cash benefits. They would like to have a meaningful job. They would like to have something that they can hold on to, that they can feel good at working at.
Exactly. Now, they need resources. They need, if they're not proficient in English, well, they need to go learn English.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, there are resources at the Manchester Public Library.
Right, yep, there is.
That they can contact a woman there who's part of the English language learner program.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they offer tutors, volunteer tutors, to help folks learn English.
Do we have information on who they could contact about that?
Not at the library, I don't, but if they just look up Manchester Public Library, ask anybody for the library number, or just go down to the library.
Or go to the library, they can be directed to that person.
That's on Pine Street in Manchester.
Yeah.
And see if they can get some English language. I mean, you just can't sit back and do nothing, right?
No.
You have to be proactive. If you're looking for a job, then there are steps to getting there.
Yes.
And sometimes there are hurdles, like you say.
Yeah, there is hurdles. I mean, I've been out of work since 2010 due to a RIF for the company that I worked for. That I came in one day, and New Hampshire is problematic when they have this employee at will clause, which means an employer can simply just say, for no reason, we no longer need you.
Well, then you move on and you try to make the best of things,
And
right?
and I have for those many
Right.
years. I have.
Right, but okay, so we have steps. If you need English, you can go to the library and perhaps get set up with a tutor and help yourself learn English. Then you have the Adult Learning Center. If you have enough English where you can go through some test prep for the HiSet, which is the equivalency, high school equivalency testing. It's not called GED anymore. It's called HiSet. And there are, there's a woman named Barbara Gardner. She can be reached at 624-6300, extension 195. So if you write this number down, if you want to get your high school diploma or equivalency, which is called HiSet, if you're an adult and need your equivalency, because that's the minimum that you have to get a job in this country.
Any job, yes. in
Any
this
job.
country.
So if you need your high school diploma certificate, which is a HiSet equivalency, it's 624-6300, extension 195. So then, let's say you have your high school diploma. Now what, Bob? You're looking for a job.
Right.
You have the minimum that it takes to qualify for a low-skill job or no-skill job, but you have two hands.
Right.
You can be a worker somewhere, somehow. Where are the jobs?
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, I've lived in Manchester, like I said, Deborah. I've lived here 16 years, and I've seen even manufacturing jobs just simply disappear. They're just evaporating, like the drought in California. We'll use that as an analogy. They're just evaporating. We have East Industrial Drive here in Manchester, but we haven't seen much growth there. We're now seeing growth outside of Manchester in Londonderry.
Right. We talk about that article from the Union Leader
Yeah.
on September 8th, 2015. They talk about 350 jobs in Londonderry.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an ominous article because it says it's an undisclosed company. Okay, now this is since September, so now maybe there's somebody that knows what the company is and knows what the jobs are. And how to get into those jobs, we don't know. And is there an employment service that is servicing these jobs? These
Or a
private,
job fair or some type.
right? Sometimes if you go, you can't apply to the company itself. You have to go through the agency that's screening folks for
Right.
these jobs. We need to find that out. Are all the jobs taken already? I don't know. We need to do some more homework. We need to have maybe Mr. Aganos come on with us.
Yeah, Mr. Aganos, that would be great to have him come on for another segment. I think that would be great because I think he could really speak to about the industry of manufacturing jobs and things out there. And I know that he's been very positive with the city. I mean, he helped build the River's Edge. He purchased that property and helped build the River's Edge. The State Liquor Store, again, he owns property in the State Liquor Store. Murphy's Tap Room, he owns that building, which he helped, a local businessman, build up that property, and that's been doing very well.
The old Osram.
And the old Osram that's coming up is going to be people say they don't like strip malls, but I say any job is a job. As long as it's done right and the jobs are they pay well, then it's a job. It may be a stepping stone for someone, into something bigger and better.
But in the old days, I want to say the old days, we had manufacturing, we had assembly.
Yeah.
those jobs were, you know,
Wonderful.
easy for somebody to walk into and to collect a paycheck. And they did their work well, and they didn't have to necessarily interact with people because maybe they'd feel shy about their language
Right.
skills maybe a little bit, but they want a job that they can do.
Right.
I hope manufacturing comes back, but
Again, we'll have to see. I mean, this year is almost over. Who knows in the next two years, maybe 3 years. I'd like to see next year to see some kind of manufacturing come back to either Manchester or even the state. But we've seen many things on Union Leader, on social medias, on a lot of different newscasts that jobs are leaving the state of New Hampshire, in exodus. They're going away. And why is that? So I think it's not just a Manchester's problem. I think it's a state problem. And I think we need to talk to some of our state reps and our senators and see exactly what is coming up for the new session in the new year, especially where they're going to have a state election next year. This is maybe something we should ask our candidates.
is our state attractive enough for jobs,
Exactly.
for
And,
industries to come here?
the business
our
taxes
city,
are tough.
The business tax, right. Now, what about our city? Our zoning laws, our planning, building planning and permits, and
There's a lot of steps to go through. Good example, T.R. Brennan's, who used to be located on Hanover Street and Page Street. Sadly, after a fire destroyed his building, and he wanted to redevelop on his land that he paid taxes on, the city at that time had said no.
really?
They for some reason, and I don't have all the articles in front of me, had put a stop to it, and for some reason, so obviously the owner said, well, I'm done. Sold the land to a private company who then came and built a Dunkin' Donuts on the property, which the city allowed, which I thought was not, it's a job, but it's not a high-end job.
And how many jobs were displaced there?
You're talking maybe 100 employees from T.R.
my
Brennan's, maybe.
Goodness, yeah.
But then you bring in Dunkin' Donuts, you're talking maybe 25, maybe 15 employees.
most, yeah.
At the most. So I think with the new year coming up, and obviously we'll see who, hopefully it will be Mayor Gatsas. We don't know. I mean, he won by 85 votes, so we'll see. Maybe we can ask him too. What is on the books for next year?
Right.
Ask our aldermen who are newly elected. What are their plans?
Economic development.
Yeah.
We need jobs in the city, and if the city fathers and the mayor are not going to help provide jobs in our city, then I believe we need a bus system that will take our residents to Londonderry for these 350 jobs.
Some kind of
Okay.
shuttle service.
A shuttle service to these jobs. This is not right that we don't have jobs, coming to the city, but they're coming all around the city, and there's no way for our residents to get there. Remember, they're just starting out. They don't have money for a car,
Right.
right? They need some public transportation to get to those jobs, and I think it's our duty to help them get on their feet. And if the jobs are going to be outside the city and not in the city, then we need to provide transportation for those folks.
Yeah, and that's part of the infrastructure is to provide a way to get to and from your work. I mean, my wife, when she worked at Hillcrest Terrace Retirement Community, even as a dishwasher here on Front Street, buses don't run at night. So after she gets out at 11 o'clock at night, to take a taxi was $13 one way. Now, if you add that up 5 days in a week, that's pretty expensive. That cuts into the paycheck.
Right, no, that's
You know?
ridiculous. And I think it's the duty of the city to provide the transportation or help provide transportation at minimal cost. And it just is. I mean, we just can't just teach them English, help them to get a GED, and then not help them to get to and from work.
Right, exactly.
Okay, at least to start them off. I mean, later on, they may be able to afford a car, but right now we just want to get them off the free and reduced lunch status.
And get their foot in the door,
for
get
their
them
children.
employed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about the parents right now need this help.
Yeah, and it leads to self-worth too, because when you're working, you're feeling good about yourself. You're in better health. You have the money to. You don't have to worry about how am I going to pay the bills, or how am I going to what kind of food I'm going to bring in for the month. When with a job, you have that that self-assurance that you know that the paycheck's coming in on Friday or every 2 weeks, and you know you'll be able to afford the groceries that you need or keep the bills paid and the heat on and so forth.
Exactly.
You know.
Well, Bob, we're going to be showing a video in a few minutes, in a couple, 1 minute here, that is about the GED HiSet test. It's not called GED anymore. New Hampshire has adopted HiSet, even though we keep using the word GED because that's what we're familiar with. HiSet is the high school equivalency testing. So if there are folks out here in Manchester who need to get their high school equivalency diploma, then this is the route you need to take. And if you need to get your English first, then call the library, get set up with an English tutor, and get your English skills. And then you can take your GED prep classes and then go for your test. So this little video here will help you to understand a little bit about what's required of you to take your HiSet test, and I hope this will be helpful to everyone here in this situation. Thank you, John, for playing that video, and catch you next time on Our City Matters. Take care. Watch this video.
Welcome to this official overview of the ETS High School Equivalency Test, or HiSet. You've taken a big step by deciding to take the ETS HiSet test. We are dedicated to working with you to make this process as easy and anxiety-free as possible. In this video, we'll show you what to expect when taking the HiSet test, whether you take it on paper or on computer. We're going to explain what the test covers, and give you some sample questions, show you the test taker-friendly design, and guide you to additional resources to help you prepare. And by the end of the video, you'll know what to expect on test day and be on your way to achieving your high school equivalency diploma and opening up a whole new world of opportunity. The HiSet program strives to make taking your high school equivalency test more accessible and affordable. We provide options to take the test on paper or computer, or a combination of both, however you feel most comfortable. We want to support you every step of the way, starting with free practice exams and other low-cost practice tools, so you can be well prepared on test day. Well, we'll talk more about that in a moment. First, let's get started with a look at the overall structure of the HiSet test. The HiSet test will demonstrate that you have attained academic knowledge and proficiency equivalent to that of a high school graduate. The test covers 5 subject areas: reading, writing, math, science, and social studies. Each of these subjects is taken in separate subtests that range from 50 minutes to 2 hours in length. We'll get into more detail on each of the subtests in a minute. You will need to register in advance to take the HiSet test. Just go to www.hiset.org and set up a My HiSet account. We'll talk more about that at the end of this video. You may schedule the subtests in any order you would like, and you can schedule tests at your own pace, giving you the time you need to prepare for each subject. You can take 1 test a day or more than 1, depending on your individual preference. Your test center administrators can advise you on the best plan to fit your needs. On the day of the test, you should report to your testing center at least 15 minutes prior to your appointment time so you can check in and familiarize yourself with the facility. Here's a helpful hint. Wear a couple of layers of clothing so you can adjust to the varying temperatures in the testing facilities. And remember to use the restroom before you sit down for the test. While all of us need to take a break sometimes, you will not have scheduled breaks during the HiSet exam, except for one between the 2 sections of the writing test. The wisest strategy is to take any necessary breaks before your appointment time. Now, let's take a closer look at each of the subtests. I mentioned before that the HiSet exam covers 5 subject areas: reading, writing, mathematics, science, and social studies. Let's talk about what to expect on each of these subtests. The reading test will ask you to demonstrate your ability to understand, interpret, and analyze a variety of reading materials. You'll have 65 minutes to complete 40 multiple-choice questions. The test presents reading selections from many different sources in the form of memoirs, essays, biographical sketches, editorials, or poetry. After reading a selection, you'll be asked 1 or more questions about what you have read. The writing test will be in 2 parts. Part 1 contains multiple-choice questions, and you will have 75 minutes to answer 50 questions. Part 1 of the test measures your ability to edit and revise written text. Part 2 is the essay section, and you will have 45 minutes to complete an essay. Part 2 of the test measures your ability to generate and organize ideas in writing. The mathematics test will assess your ability to solve quantitative problems using fundamental concepts such as numerical operations, measurement, and logical thinking. You'll have 90 minutes to complete 50 multiple-choice questions. If you're taking the test on paper, the test center will supply a calculator. If you're taking the math test on computer, there's an on-screen calculator. More about that later. The science test will measure your ability to interpret and evaluate scientific information. You will have 80 minutes to complete the 50 multiple-choice questions in the science subtest. Lastly, the social studies test assesses your ability to analyze and evaluate various kinds of social studies information, such as distinguishing statements of fact from opinion. You will have 70 minutes to complete 50 multiple-choice questions. Now that you have a better feel for each of the 5 subtests, let's take a look at a few sample questions. Some reading questions require you to read a passage carefully to answer one or more questions. All of the information you need is right there in the passage. So in this example, you don't need to know anything about insects or biology to answer the question. As I mentioned before, the writing subtest has 2 parts. This multiple-choice question from part 1 asks you to improve the writing by selecting the best choice to replace the indicated words, or if it would be better to leave it unchanged. Part 2 of the writing subtest is an essay question to test your writing skills. This example asks you to write a persuasive essay for a newsletter to encourage people to exercise. What counts most is your ability to develop a main idea with supporting information, clear organization, and effective and correct use of language. Math questions often include charts, tables, or graphics. This question presents a diagram of a swimming pool that a city is planning to build. To answer this question about swim lanes, you need to refer to the diagram as well as information included with the question to make the correct choice. Those are just a few examples. You can review the test in more detail and take practice exams by visiting us online at www.hiset.org, where you'll find more detailed information about each test subject and free test prep tools. Okay, so we've given you an idea of the kinds and number of questions on the HiSet exam and how long each subtest lasts. Now we're going to shift our focus to the computer-based test. As I mentioned at the start of this video, you can take the HiSet exam using a traditional paper and pencil version. I'm sure you're familiar with test books and the answer sheets with the bubbles you fill in. You can also take the HiSet exam on a computer. We realize that taking a test on a computer might sound a little scary, especially if you've never taken a computerized test before. So we'll focus the rest of this video on the computer-based test, so you can be confident and familiar with what you'll have to do on the day of the exam. The HiSet computer-based exam has a test-taker-friendly design. It gives you a lot of flexibility and includes tools to help you do your best. For example, the mathematics subtest includes an on-screen calculator that you can access at any time during the test. The calculator contains all the basic functions you'll need for the kinds of questions the test contains. Here's an important tip. Don't feel that you need to use the calculator just because it's there. Most questions do not involve complex computations, and some questions can be handled simply by reason and estimation. So read the entire question before turning to the calculator, and use it only when you need help with more difficult computations. For the essay part of the writing subtest, you'll be typing your response on a keyboard using word processing software developed specifically for the test. It includes the basic operations you would expect. You're able to insert text, delete, cut and paste, and undo the previous action. There's no spell checker or grammar checker, but don't worry. Occasional spelling or grammar errors won't affect your final score. If you're taking the Spanish version of the test, there will be a special toolbar available in the essay subtest so that you can insert Spanish language characters. You'll just need to mouse over the character you want to insert and click on it to include the character in your essay. Throughout all 5 subtests, there are features that let you use your own personal test-taking strategies. You can edit or change answers within a timed section. You can mark questions that you want to temporarily skip, then return to them later. Basically, you can navigate around a subtest as long as you are within the allotted time. The design is clear and simple, with buttons that enable you to move forward to the next question and back to the previous one. You may also mark a question you want to return to later. There's a help button and a timer telling you how much time is left in the section. If you would rather not know how much time you have left, just click the Hide Time button. In the last 5 minutes of the section, the clock will automatically reappear for your convenience. One extremely useful button is labeled Review. Clicking this button gives you the status of all the questions in that section, those you've answered, those you haven't, the ones you marked, and any questions you haven't looked at yet. So here's a really important test-taking tip. Use the Mark and Review tools to keep track of questions you want to revisit within a section, or identify questions you may have skipped altogether. Be sure to budget your time so that you can give the review screen an added check before completing the section. There are other general strategies that will help you to do your best on the HiSet exams. First of all, be prepared. Access and use the free official test prep materials from ETS on our website at www.hiset.org. When you finish your test on the computer, you'll see a screen that looks something like this, showing your unofficial subtest score. Your essay score will be available about 2 weeks after you take the test. After test day, you can sign on to your My HiSet account. This is the account you set up online when you registered to take the test, and see the scores for each of the subtests you have taken thus far, as well as a cumulative transcript. You may print out your transcript to send to employers or colleges. We hope this brief overview of the HiSet program has been a valuable step on your road to a successful test experience. We also have many other helpful resources you'll want to explore, starting with our website, www.hiset.org. As I mentioned earlier, you can access free test prep there. You can also purchase additional test prep material, and of course, you can register to take the test. The entire HiSet team is rooting for you to do your very best on the HiSet test. Thanks for joining me today, and good luck to you.